the resurrection happened, it's true. If it didn't happen, it's not true. And in the end, if I looked at all the historical sources, I thought about the eyewitnesses, I considered all the arguments against the resurrection and concluded it's harder to believe that he didn't rise from the dead than it is to believe that he did. And I honestly believe that.
Oh, I trust that you honestly believe this, but at the same time, I cannot believe that. I just simply can't believe that it's easier to believe in magic than it is to believe in the natural world. For one thing, magic, or what I'm calling magic being the resurrection or any of the miraculous claims of Christianity, for instance, I just simply can't believe that it's easier to believe that than the natural world that we have observed for hundreds of thousands of years to operate the way that it does. We've been able to scientifically test things, and it has shown that the natural world operates in a certain way. And that certain way does not really give a lot of room for magic or miracles, whatever. I guess I can understand how it's easier because you just believe in the miraculous things and you don't really think too deeply into it. You don't think about how it contradicts the natural order of the universe. And like, for instance, in the Old Testament, when Moses goes up on the mountain and he tells everybody, you can't come up here. It's all cloudy and smoky and stuff, but trust me, I'm talking to God and he's penning the 10 Commandments and writing all this shit down for me with his lightning dick. And you just got to trust me about it, okay? Don't come up there and look or else God will flee like you're shining a light on a cockroach. He just gets the hell out of there, okay? I cannot just sit there and accept any longer stuff like that that's told to me. I just can't accept it without questioning it. Like, what, Moses, hold on now. Why can't we go up there and see God? Oh, well, if you see God, then you're going to go blind. Oh, okay. Is there any other way that we can test to make sure that God's really up there? Like, I don't know, could you take a picture of it, or is that going to burn the camera out? Like, I don't know. Like, what? Is there any other way that you can actually verify to us that God is really up there doing it? Nope, you just got to take me at my word. I'm just not wired like that. Some people are wired to just believe things that they're told. I am not.
I didn't have to convince myself into that. I just intellectually cannot believe that he did not rise from the dead when you consider the evidence.
What evidence? There's no eyewitnesses accounts. He talked about considering the eyewitness accounts. There are no eyewitness accounts. Paul is not an eyewitness to Jesus' resurrection. Paul had a hallucination of Jesus. The Gospels are not eyewitness accounts either. They're anonymously written. Nothing in them connects to anything in history. Luke is the only one that even attempts to make it look like he's recording history. But even so, he doesn't list anybody that he got his information from. He just vaguely talks about having previously written sources. And that's it. That's not how you do history, especially in the first century. So there were no eyewitnesses. There were no eyewitness accounts. There is no intellectual evidence for the resurrection of Jesus. It's just purely based on faith from what I can discern. So I have no idea what he's talking about when he says that intellectually he can only believe in the resurrection of Jesus.
It's what the eyewitnesses claimed and what happened to them that's the key. So the original disciples are a big factor, but Paul is a big factor too, because Paul had nothing to gain by becoming a Christian or fabricating a story about the resurrection of Jesus. He had everything to lose, and he was passionately opposed to the message of Jesus. That's the thing.
Well, he was originally passionately opposed to Christians, not necessarily the message of Jesus, but Christians, and then he had his hallucination and he turned his life around. These people were not disciples or in any way had any kind of connection to a historical Jesus. Paul never indicates anybody as being a disciple. I don't know what this guy could be talking about when he's talking about disciples and their testimonies and everything, but even if you just take the Gospels at their word about the disciples, they were all peasant people. They did not learn how to read and write. So it's kind of amazing to me that he thinks these peasant people who had no means or motivation to learn to read and write eventually read and wrote things. That's what I don't get. But also trying to retroactively determine what Paul's motivation was, I feel like you're going to fail every single time, because we can't know what Paul's motivation was. But to say that Paul had no motivation, I think is being a little bit myopic, because Paul turning his life around and, then leading the Christian group in that area, I think there's plenty of motivation behind that. Free food. You get exalted by others. You get treated like you're special, all because, you have these hallucinations of their savior. I mean, I think that there's plenty of motivation there for Paul to sort of turn around and, become one of the leading Christian apostles. So to say that he had everything to lose and nothing to gain is just rejecting all of the information we have about what he did have to gain from it. And I feel like that's not what he's considering. Especially if you take a look at like Lee Strobel and J. Warner Wallace. Both of them were hard opposed to Christianity to begin with, and then they turned their lives around, and now they're some of the leading apologists in the community. This seems to be a trend in Christianity of people being so opposed, and then, now they're the leaders of the community because they once doubted it or something like that. It seems like there's enough motivation there to explain this away if you wanted to see it that way. But I sincerely believe that Paul thought that he saw a risen Jesus. I think that he fully believed in that because that's what the evidence shows us. And I typically try not to argue from things that we don't have evidence for.
And so for me, Paul's testimony that the risen Jesus really did appear to him on the road to Damascus, and then you see the incredible transformation in his life, a transformation that could only occur if he genuinely and honestly believed that that event happened, leading to intense suffering and persecution all the rest of his life, and finally martyrdom, being beheaded in Rome. I cannot believe that Paul made up that story. It makes no sense that he would make up that story and devote his life to something that he knew was false.
Well, see, I don't think that Paul thought it was false. I think that Paul genuinely believed in his hallucination. In this section, this guy talks about how the only thing that could ever explain that is that Jesus really did resurrect. But it could also be explained by Paul just being mistaken. Paul could just simply be mistaken about Jesus really resurrecting. He just had a hallucination. I had an extensive talk with KC this morning about how him walking to Damascus on that road and being dehydrated could have led to a hallucination. And he completely believed in this hallucination, and it changed his life. This is not something that just doesn't ever happen. People have these kinds of experiences all the time that just radically change their life. And that doesn't mean that their hallucinations were real. It just means that they were incredibly convinced by what they experienced. But that does not make it inherently true.